So we're going to go on ahead and get started. So hello and welcome everyone. My name is Lisa Roman. I am assistant to the Director of Community Relations, Grady Stevenson, and I am also the Women's History Month Committee chairperson. And as we wait for more guests to join us on our Facebook Live, I want to take a moment to thank Mayor Bibb for giving us the thumbs up to celebrate the women across the city and giving us resources such as this to have events like this. Thank you to my amazing committee team. If I ever have to pick a team to do any project, this is the team that I always want to have. I want to thank Director Stevenson for his support and his encouragement. I think sometimes he has more faith in me than I have in myself to do tasks like this. Thank you, Meltrice, for saying yes, for being with us today. And I also want to thank and welcome our Chief, Sonia Pryor-Jones, for being here, for supporting us. And we're just going to jump right into this. So I want to introduce to you Grady Stevenson, Director of Community Relations.
Good morning again to everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be amongst you today. I think Elizabeth, she said her name is Lisa. I'm going to tell you guys right now, it's Elizabeth. I thank Elizabeth for spearheading this women's celebration for this month and bringing all this together. We're going to celebrate the importance of women and bringing information and resources such as this. We started the month with Designing a City for Women, a panel discussion with women from our mayor's administration, from Mayor Bibb's administration. Today will also be impactful as we hear from our guest speaker on the importance of financial freedom. I want to thank, first of all, Mayor Bibb again for allowing us this opportunity to focus on women doing great things in this great city of Cleveland. It is indeed a pleasure to sit amongst you to hear some of the great things that are going on here in the city of Cleveland. I would also like to thank my Chief Sonia Jones, for being with us today and just being a part of the team. I want to thank the Planning Committee again for the great work that you have done. And also, we want to make sure that we are spotlighting women doing great things in the city of Cleveland. There are young women, and I have 3 granddaughters here in the city of Cleveland, and I love to say we can point at great women doing great things in the city of Cleveland, to spotlight women who are doing work in the city of Cleveland that don't take a back seat to anybody when it comes to doing a great job at the work that they do. So I'm thankful for being here today. And at this time, I want to introduce to you all again, my Chief Pryor-Jones. Chief.
Thank you, Director Stevenson. And it's such a pleasure to be here with everyone today. I bring you greetings from the mayor's office. Before I make my brief remarks, I again want to celebrate the amazing women here at City Hall and across the city community that have gathered as a committee to plan this amazing opportunity for all of us. We appreciate your leadership. A lot of women going above and beyond, which is what we do in order to serve others. So thank you so much for that service. I'm really excited about today's session. As I heard financial freedom, I thought about a quote that I heard, which was, real wealth is about freedom. And I'm an educator, so I like props. I also thought about this book. It's one of my favorite books, I Dream a World. And it speaks about great American women, Black women who have done great service to our community. And when I think about financial freedom, I think about all of their great works that came before us that really allowed for the creation of a high quality of life for others. And so when I think about the remarks that are being shared today and the vast knowledge that is being shared as it relates to financial freedom, I think about how much more women are able to do when they do have the financial resources to be able to not only take care of themselves and their families, but also to serve others. The other thing that comes to mind for me is what this administration is committed to, and why I'm so excited to be here with all of you as your chief for youth and family success in the city of Cleveland. This administration is really committed to creating the kind of environment for developing the opportunities that are necessary for financial freedom, the quality of life that we know all of our residents deserve. So it's a delight to be with you. And I'm really looking forward to all the amazing knowledge that this amazing Cleveland School graduate is going to provide for us today, another city success story. And I appreciate the opportunity to share remarks.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Smith, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker today, CPA Meltrice Sharp. Meltrice is a native of Cleveland, Ohio, and a managing partner at Creating Lending Enterprise consulting firm, an accounting and consulting firm offering tax, payroll, business, and consulting services to small and middle marketing companies, nonprofit organizations, religious organizations, and individuals. With more than 20 years as a CPA, Meltrice has an extensive knowledge and experience in accounting, tax, management, finance, and business consulting. Meltrice received her BBA with a concentration in accounting from Kent State University and her MBA from Bowling Wallace University. As she is currently an instructor at Cuyahoga Community College, where she teaches a variety of accounting courses. Meltrice is the founding member of Women Creating Wealth and Impact, an organization that addresses the education, knowledge, and access gaps with women and finances. She is the president of the Black Professional Association Charitable Foundation and the treasurer of the National Association of Minority Contractors of Northern Ohio. Meltrice is a trustee for both the Deaconess Foundation and the Women of Color Foundation. She is a member of the Business Advisory Committee for Tri-C, a marketing advisory committee for Jumpstart. And Meltrice is a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Omega chapter of Cleveland, Ohio. Meltrice devotes a significant amount of her personal time giving back to her community. She attends Faith Fellowship Church and is a loving and devoted wife, mother, and grandmother. Her favorite pastime is hanging out with her family, telling corny jokes. Meltrice's guilty pleasure is vegging out on the couch watching reality TV. Without further ado, Ms. Meltrice Sharp.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And before I get started, I'd definitely like to thank Director Stevenson and Chief Pryor Jones, who is a friend of mine, and the whole committee for having the forethought and foresight of introducing this information to some or reiterating it to others because of the criticality it has on our city. Recently, the recent census basically said that Cleveland is the poorest city in the nation. And if that didn't make you mad, it made me mad. So I am very excited about this opportunity. And I thank you, your committee, Elizabeth, for putting this together. I know that it takes a lot of work and effort to put these things together. So I appreciate all of that. And you know, before I share my slides, I just want to say, I love this African proverb that says, when you teach a man, you teach an individual. But when you teach a woman, you teach a nation. And I am very, very passionate about women becoming financially literate because I understand and know that women rule the world. We have ruled it from the background for long enough, and now we're taking our rightful seat in the front where we belong to do what we need to do. And so what we have to do now is align our finances with our power so that we can change and transform our world. So again, thank you for inviting me. I am going to share my slides and jump right in if you don't mind. So let me know when you can see the slides.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So why is this discussion important? I have to start off with this slide because it's important for us to understand how critical this discussion is. So why is it important? As I mentioned earlier, in 2019, the city of Cleveland was named the poorest big city in the nation, with 114,000 people living in poverty, including 37,700 children. And this is according to the Center for Community Solutions. The data reports 32.7% of people are living in poverty, and a median household income of $30,907 and the median gross rent of $719. And I don't know if you guys know, but a livable wage for an individual is $45,000 in Cleveland. So 32% of people are making below that. Women account for 85% of all consumer purchases on everything from autos to healthcare, and 89% of bank accounts. And that's according to the Marketing Women's Conference. So that tells me that we are controlling a lot of the dollars that are being spent in our communities. So if we can control the dollars that are being spent, we can transform our communities. 80% of women will solely be responsible for their finances at some point. So that makes it even more critical that we're effectively managing the money that we make. Fewer than 2 in 10 women feel very prepared to make wise financial decisions. Half indicate they need some help. 1/3 feels that they need a lot of help. And only about a half of women have about half of women have just $100 or less in discretionary income each month. And that's according to Credit Karma. And 2/3 of women ages 40 to 79 have already dealt with the major financial crisis. And I would say that number is even greater after the COVID pandemic. And I just put these snapshots on the right of this slide because for me it was like a visual picture of why I'm upset about this and why I'm so passionate about doing the work. So I just wanted to talk really quick about why this conversation with us is so important. I don't know how to advance the slides here. Okay, so when we talk about financial literacy, when we talk about effectively managing our money, there are 5 steps. This slide is wrong. 5 steps in order to effectively do this. And generally, when I talk to people, I talk about the mantra that money is power. And if you believe that mantra, or if you've heard that mantra, you know that if you have a lot of money, you have a lot of power. If you have a little bit of money, you have a little power. But if you have no money, you have no power. And that's what statistics are telling us, is that we have no money. But I know that the statistics are wrong. In some cases, we have money, but we've been so conditioned and brainwashed to believe that it's the money that we make that we should be bragging about, as opposed to effectively managing the money that we make and using that money to build generational wealth and legacy. And in order to effectively manage that money and to use it to build that wealth and that legacy, you have to at least implement these 5 steps. So the first step is starting with a plan. The second step is spending wisely. The third step is building an emergency fund and growing that until you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses. The fourth step is repair your credit and pay down your debt. And then the last step is purchasing adequate insurance. And I'm going to add to that to make sure that we consider investments here at the same time. And so when we talk about managing and effectively managing our money, it's critical because when we as a community, when we go out and we protest and different things like that, we can't really affect change until we have dollars. So So the people that are affecting change and impacting policy are the people that have the money. So a broke people is really an oppressed people. A broke people is really a voiceless people and a lost people. So it's time for us to start to build generational and legacy and wealth in our community. So why do I say start with the plan? I mentioned the 5 steps, and they sound a little simple. It's not about the steps that's difficult. It's about the practical application, the consistent application. It's about the discipline and the accountability. I am going to develop a plan. I'm going to stick to that plan. I'm going to allow that plan to control and manage, help me manage my expenses. And I'm going to make sure that my yes is greater than my no. So let's talk about that. When I say starting with the plan, I like the biblical proverb that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a hero may run with it. And what does that mean? That means just developing your plan, understanding every month how much income you're bringing in and how much money you're spending, and managing that and sticking to it, and really only spending what you can afford to spend. There's trillions of dollars of debt in our country because people are spending more than what they're making. And they make it trendy, they make it fun for us to spend it, but when we're bogged down in debt, we can't be happy. We're stressed, and that spills over into our personal lives, and it spills over into our career. So the first step is creating that budget. And a budget is just a spending plan. A lot of people get a little nervous when we talk budget and numbers and math and stuff like that, but it is just a spending plan. Dave Ramsey says a budget allows you to tell your money where to go, as opposed to looking up and asking, where did it go, right? A budget puts you in the driver's seat of your financial situation. And it literally is understanding your money and growing your money and understanding the power of your money, because your money is going to go somewhere. That's what money does. It's going to go somewhere. So you have to tell it where to go. And in order to do that effectively, you should be using a budget. So I tell people, you have to start with the budget. People that win, they budget. And there's inherent benefits to a budget. Let's talk about some of them. What are some of the essential budget successes? There's a financial impact. It gives you control over your finances. It allows you to plan for giving, saving, and investing. It assists you with accomplishing your goals. It challenges you to live within your means. And I'm going to stop here because I want to say that if you're struggling financially, or if you're trying to elevate your finances, living within your means is not good enough. You have to live below your means, and then let your money grow faster using compound interest. We can talk about that later. It helps you redirect money to assist with eliminating debt. There's a spiritual impact to budgeting if you are a spiritual person. Where there's no vision, the people perish, but your spirit changes. You experience an internal peace when you don't have financial challenges. There's a relational impact. It removes one of the largest obstacles from marriage. They say 50% of marriages end in divorce, but one of the primary reasons of that has to do with finances. So when you remove that obstacle, then you're less likely to have that challenge in your marriage, or you're less likely to become divorced. It allows you to have more meaningful relationships because your relationships are not about money or the lack thereof. And then it allows you to help your family, friends, and community. Broke people can't help people. So putting yourself in the driver's seat of your finances and in enhancing your dollars, it allows you to be the community and servant leader that you should be. And the emotional impact of it is when your life is organized, you develop a sense of well-being. It keeps you focused. It feels good to not have to worry about where your dollar is going. And statistically, they say a huge percent of people that make over six figures still live paycheck to paycheck. So this transforms any socioeconomic status, any educational status, any relational status. Everybody, a lot of people struggle with finance, but when you don't have to struggle, it allows you to be focused. And I'm not sure what just happened with my slides there. All right, so as you're doing your budget, as I mentioned before, you should be budgeting every month. Your budget should start with all of your income and all of your expenses. As you're doing this, you want to make sure that your living expenses, your fixed expenses come first. But you also want to budget for those miscellaneous things. You want to budget for that party that you have to go to, and you know you have to bring a gift. You want to budget for your savings. You want to budget for your investings. Every dollar has a home when you're budgeting. So when you're budgeting at the end, you should have a zero. You should have a net zero budget. So if you have dollars left over, you need to allocate them to one of these areas. And so I wanted to show you guys a suggested budget mix. It's just a suggestion, but as you are developing and creating your budget, if you look at it and you say, oh, my housing is 50% of my budget, you may need to think about a refinance, or you may need to think about downsizing. So because you're spending too much money on your housing, which means it doesn't leave you an adequate amount for everything else. So as you're thinking about your budget and building out your budget, make sure you kind of use these as somewhat of a standard and try to kind of come close to these percentages. So I want to talk to you about a fail-proof strategy for budgeting. One, you're always revisiting your budget. Your budget is not something that you are going to work on. You're going to do it one time and you're never going to look at it again. You're always, every month, you're creating a new and unique budget at the beginning of every month, because every month it changes. You want to compare your budget to actual every month and investigate all of those budget busters. You know, those things that blow up your budget that you did not plan for, so that you can control and get your mindset together. Because if it's not in your budget, you should not be spending it. Not until you can say, I'm financially empowered, I'm financially free, and I have a big savings and a big investment account, and I'm building legacy in future for my family. So until you can do that, you should be managing to your budget. And that means that every month you're looking at what you said that you were going to spend and make, and what you actually spent and made. And you're looking at that variance and you're figuring out how you're blowing and busting your budget, and you're making the necessary adjustments. And again, take into consideration all changes in your income and your spending, and you revisit that monthly. The second, and I think this is really, really critical, is automating the direction of your dollars. I tell people all the time, Uncle Sam don't wait on you to pay him. He takes it right out. And he takes it right out, and we've gotten to the point where we don't even miss it because we know that it's not going to be there, and we don't plan for it, right? So how does Uncle Sam get paid before you get paid and you're doing all the work? So you automate your savings, you automate your investing, you automate your giving, you automate as much as you can based on your budget so that you're not worried about it. Okay? So that's a really critical part. Accountability is critical in anything that we attempt to do or any discipline we attempt to transform. right? I'm always on a lifestyle change where I'm trying to eat better and different things like that. But I'm always asking my friends and soliciting help. Can you help me? Make sure I'm working out. Make sure I stay on the right track. If you see me veering off track, get me back on track, right? So that accountability piece is really critical, identifying somebody who will keep you accountable. But here's the thing, you have to allow that person to hold you accountable. It's funny how many people call me about finances or people that I coach and they say, hold me accountable. And then when I hold them accountable, they'll say something like, oh, I know, I just really had to have that purse, right? I just really had to have that car. So the other side to find an accountability partner is allowing that person to hold you accountable. Staying true to yourself, staying true to your goals. Accountability is not only what we do, but it's also what we don't do. Okay, so when it comes to being accountable, what I like to tell people is define your yes. I am very clear that I want to be wealthy. I am very clear that I want my grandchildren to be trust fund babies. I'm very clear that I want to make sure that my grandchildren can go to college and that I'm building legacy and wealth and that I'm giving to my community and that my community is going to be better off when I'm gone than it was. I mean, it's going to be better off that I was a part of it than it was before I became a part of it. I'm very clear on my yes. So when you're clear on your yes, your no becomes easier. I want some of the $2,500 purses, and I can afford to buy a $2,500 purse. But I think about all the other things that I can be doing that's going to get me closer to my yes than that purse would. And that purse does not serve me, so I don't serve it. Okay, so that accountability is really critical. And adjusting when necessary, that is the part of knowing that this is flexible, knowing what your budget busters are. If you see a consistent budget buster, then you need to figure out how to budget for it, right? So making changes when needed. Your budget should closely reflect your reality. If it's not in your budget, you should not be spending it. When I teach about budgets, I use budget envelopes. We get deep into all of the components of budgets, and we, really make sure that it reflects our reality. And again, getting to your actual budget is going to take at least 90 days for you to say, all right, this is my groove. This is all good, right? So don't give up. It's going to take at least 90 days for you to fine tune it and make it your reality. So the second step is spending, saving, and investing. So again, as women, we already know that all of these things will happen to us. In some cases, most of these things have already happened to us. I need to update this slide to say a global pandemic. But the question is, will you be ready? Have you done the right and made the proper steps so that you're prepared for retirement, aged parents, the death of a spouse? I tell people to close their eyes and imagine that all your life, your mother or your father has been telling you that, once they become older, they're going to come live with you. Once they become older and they can no longer work and they can no longer really take care of themselves, they're going to come live with you. And time goes by, and then that day comes where your mother is knocking on your door. But you answer the door and you have nothing left to take care of your mother because you've spent it all. You've lived life for the now and thought little about the future. But imagine your mother being you, because if we live long enough, we will retire. We only work a portion of our lives to live all of our lives. So if you spend all of your dollars during the portion of your life where you're working, what happens when you're living the portion of your life when you're not working? We're talking about divorce or remarriage or job loss. All of these things are almost destined to happen. The question is, will you be ready? Roughly 23% of Americans couldn't even pay $100 emergency situation. So this is real. So when we talk about budgeting first, but the second thing is making sure that you spend wisely. And to my point, where is your yes big enough? Is your yes bigger than your no? This is where the rubber meets the road. Are you spending wisely? Are you living below your means as opposed to within your means or above your means, which most Americans are living above our means because we care more about cars and clothes than we care about college funds for our children. We care more about material possessions than we care more about generational wealth. So are we spending our dollars wisely? The number one thing and the most simplest thing is to spend less money than you make. And as simple as it sounds, most Americans spend more money than they make, right? Stick to your budget, avoid indulgence, and retail therapy for the ladies. It's Women's History Month, so I understand and know how effective retail therapy is when you're in the midst of it, but after it, all the buyer's remorse you have. So make sure that you avoid that indulgence and find something that's productive and healthy when you need some therapy or get actual therapy. Discern the difference between needs and wants. This is really critical because a lot of times we think we need something when essentially it's truly just a want. And discerning that difference and making the right decisions are really critical. And don't underestimate the use of a coupon or a discount site. I am always looking for coupons and discounts when I need to buy something and I have to have it. I have to find a better, cheaper way to get it. And so I'm a fan of Facebook Marketplace and Groupon and, just all of those places where you can repurpose good stuff, but it's less expensive and it's not a budget buster, right? And then making a list and sticking to that list. Really critical. Especially ladies, when we're going to the grocery store, and don't go to the grocery store hungry, but sticking to that list is really critical so that you're staying within the confines of your budget. So these are some spend wisely tips. Save appropriately. Again, spiritually, or the proverb says, a wise man saves for the future, but a foolish man spends whatever he makes. Whatever he gets, I'm gonna rephrase that a little bit. A wise woman saves for the future, but a foolish woman spends whatever she gets. Okay? So one of the things that will be a part of your budget, which is really critical, is making sure that your first priority in savings is $100,000 emergency fund. So why is this critical? Because I just gave you a statistic that most women, almost 50% of women don't have $100 of discretionary income. And over 23% of Americans can't handle a $100 emergency. So we want to make sure that we build an emergency fund. So when that emergency happens, we're not doing payday loans. We're not getting $38 NSF fees from our bank. We're not desperately seeking income or funds whereby we're paying subprime lending rates for it. We have that money set aside for an emergency. And that emergency doesn't mean that the pizza man is knocking at the door. That emergency is a true emergency. My refrigerator went out. My tire went flat on the car. My hot water tank went out. So when those emergencies come, you have that money set aside. You don't have to rack up your credit card. You have that already set aside. The second thing is you want to build your savings so that it's 3 to 6 months of expenses, large purchases, and vacations. So typically people will say 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but I like to add large purchases and vacations because in our reality, we need to vacate after working countless hours and stressed out. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean that you need to rack up your credit to do so. That means that you're effectively saving because you know that it's going to happen, so that you're preparing for it to happen, and you're not using all your money to vacation and come home to a whole bunch of bills. Now you're stressed out again. So all of the peace that you got while you were on vacation is gone as soon as you walk in your door, because now all these bills are here that you forewent paying for vacation. So let's plan properly for 3 to 6 months. So if something happens like COVID, which I pray it never happens in our history again, not even our children's history, never. But if something like that ever happens, we have that aside. If we may lose our job, or if we may have to take a furlough, we have that taken care of. But we also have these things set aside for us to vacation and for us to make large purchases. And then that last bucket of savings is long-term investing and for giving generously, higher education, retirement, and legacy. And the earlier you start that, leveraging compound interest, the easier it will be for you to achieve your financial goals. So, building up your emergency funds, and then 3 to 6 months of living expenses. One, start with your emergency fund. Like I said, this money is for emergencies only, not the piece of man. Here's the key too with your emergency fund. Separate your separate your checking and your savings. Okay, your emergency savings fund should be at least 20 miles away from your home. You do not want easy access to those dollars. You want to have to get up. You want it to be inconvenient. You don't even want electronic access for you to transfer it from one account to another. It's too easy to do that, which means it's too easy to make the wrong decisions with it. You want this to be a well thought out, inconvenient decision for you to go access those dollars. So put it in. I like to tell people Faith Credit Union is one of the oldest African-American owned credit unions, I believe in Northeast Ohio. We should be supporting that organization, but that is also a good way to separate our checking from our savings and making it inconvenient for us to get it. Open an interest-bearing account so that you're earning money on that. And I know money market accounts aren't making a ton of interest right now, but it's making something. And you don't want to put it in a vehicle that would be hard to get out of, or where there will be penalties for you to get it. You want it pretty easily accessible, but you want it to sit and make some type of earnings. Again, make your savings automatic by having your employer deduct it from your paycheck. I did this when I was making little money. I made sure that $25 went into my savings account, my children's savings account, every time I got paid. I did not see it, but I was growing their savings account until I was ready to start their college fund. So it doesn't have to be a lot. It has to be what you can afford within your budget, but it has to be something. Save all your change. My partner introduced me to an app called Acorn. And what it does is, if you spend $2.50, it will round it up to $3 and it'll save it. If you spend $5.75, it will round it up to $6 and save the 25 cents. So there are applications like that on the internet everywhere. There are so many resources to help us achieve our financial goals. So you can use a resource like that. And then this one is really, really important. Save any increase in pay you make. We've already talked about living below your means. So as you're getting those increases, instead of spending them and increasing your living expenses, save them. Either continue to build your 3 to 6 months, if that's not built, or put it in your savings and make it an automatic deduction. You're not used to having it anyway. Now let that money work for you. Some investing tips, and as professionals, these are really important to our growing our retirement plan and growing our legacy and generational wealth. Maxing out your 401k or your 403b, Yeah, 403B. I'm sorry, I did that wrong. So to not do that is leaving money on the table. So if your employer says that they're going to match your first 6% of your investment, if you don't invest 6%, then you leave 6% of compensation on the table. So we all should be maxing out our employers' retirement plans, okay? Investing in a Roth IRA. So this is something that's over and above what your employer offers. This is a Roth IRA. You can invest up to $6,000 in a Roth IRA, right? If your income is less than $129,000, and $7,000 if you're older than 50 years old. So this is an addition. So now you have two vehicles generating compounding interest and growing over time. Start a 529 plan or an education spending account for your children. I am still paying off my student loan debt because none of my family understood the importance of preparing for college. And so when we talk about being the poorest city in the country, in the nation, like these are the things that helps that, because if we're not paying for or preparing or helping our children through college, then that means they're racking up a lot of debt. So now they come out of college bogged down with debt, and just overwhelmed with it. Everybody knows that has gone to college, that college debt can overwhelm you, and it's like a cyclical thing that you can never get out of. So if we are planning and investing properly, then we're doing those things to prepare for our children to go to school. Consider real estate investment or other passive income investments. So I have several friends that are franchise owners, and they go to franchise conventions. And what's interesting is they say with thousands and thousands of people there, only a handful of those people are African American. So we're not leveraging all of these investing opportunities to grow our dollars. So consider other passive income. Wealthy people have at least 3 to 7 other revenue streams that they're generating revenue from. So, consider that. And then purchasing adequate insurance. This is one with cash flow potential. And I love to talk about insurance, and we'll talk about it in just a few slides. But insurance is one of the tax-free ways that most of our wealthy counterparts leave wealth for their generations. But in minority communities, I so often and sadly see where we're doing GoFundMe accounts to even pay for our loved one's burial, which tells me that we're not properly insured. And what saddens me about that is that we will insure our phones, which is a material possession that has no value to us. We will insure everything but our lives and our futures. And so purchasing adequate insurance and really leveraging that to create generational wealth are some investing tips. So I want to talk about credit repair and honestly understanding your credit, because a lot of times we think that we need more money, but what it is that we're paying so much for the money that we have because we have poor credit. And if I were to ask, most people, if they knew their credit score, they would probably say no. And this is the value of who you are as a person. If you ever need to borrow money for a car or a home or college or whatever purchase you're borrowing money for, credit cards, right? If you don't know your credit, you can't negotiate the right terms for yourself. Or if you don't have the right credit, you're paying more for an asset than somebody who may have more money and better credit will pay for that exact same asset. So it's not just important to understand your credit score. It's important to understand what your credit score is composed of and what's impacting your credit and what are those credit busters, right? And so when you think about your credit score, it's comprised of 5 different critical components. The first is your payment history. Are you paying on time? That's 35% of your score. Just simply, are you paying on time? Right? And so what I tell people is, I never want you to just pay your minimum, but I want you to automate your minimum. You can always pay more, but if you automate your minimum, you have impacted your credit score by 35% on the upside. Okay? So automate your minimum, then you can always pay more based on your budget. But you don't have to worry about being late or anything like that because it's being automatically taken out, okay? The next large part of your credit score is your available balance versus your amount owed. That's 30%. You might hear people call it credit utilization. And what that means is that with 100% of your credit, you should only be spending 30% of that. So let me give you an example that makes it a little easier to understand. Let's just say you have 2 credit cards, you have, a car, home, not the home, a car, or, some other credit, and it equals $1,000. All of your credit balances, and not what you owe, but what you've been given. So your allotment is $1,000. So let's just say your allotment is $1,000. You want to keep how much you're spending at $300. You want to make sure you're only utilizing 30% of your allowable credit. So when you utilize more than 30% of your credit, that impacts your credit negatively. So 30% of your credit score is comprised of your credit utilization. And we'll talk about some tools and tricks and tips that we can use to do that. But what that means is that means that you need to understand what your allowances are. Like, what are your credit balances? On American Express, I can spend up to $10,000. On Citibank, I can spend up to $2,000. You need to understand what those are and make sure that you don't go over 30% of that. And if you stay within that 30%, you're going to impact your credit positively. The next thing is your credit history, 15%. Longer credit history increases your score. So some of us, when we're new to building our credit, we don't have a credit history. So we build our credit history over time. That's 15% of our score. The other 10% is new credit. When you're opening several credit accounts and you're trying to get a lot of debt, that's going to decrease your score because the creditors are saying this person may present a little bit of risk. Let's decrease their score. And then the other 10% is your credit mix. Making sure you have the right credit mix from credit cards to retail accounts, your installment loans for your cars, finance companies, and mortgage. Making sure you have a really healthy mix. That is 10% of your credit. So let's talk about really quickly, I know we're running against time, 10 steps to improving your credit. As I mentioned before, knowing your credit score. Most people do not know their credit score, and they have apps that make this easier, but most of these apps are not going to give you the credit score that the agencies will give you, like Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. There's a little bit of fluff in those credit scores. So knowing your accurate credit score from each of the bureaus is important. Understanding your credit report. So I just talked about each of the components that impact your credit. You need to go through your credit and see if there are discrepancies. You need to understand what is in your credit. A lot of times there's simple things that a simple change could impact your credit greatly. So understanding it, going through it, paying down your debt using the snowball effect. I am a Dave Ramsey master coach, and I really subscribe to the snowball effect. Some, financial literacy coaches will tell you to pay your highest balance first. I say pay your lowest balance first. because this is a discipline thing. If it was a math thing, then we would all be doing it. This is a discipline thing, and it's like I equate it to weight loss. If you lose the first 5 pounds, you're more likely to lose the next 5 pounds because you're excited. Your momentum is going. And that's what the snowball effect means. It's just establishing that momentum by paying your smallest amount first, and then taking the amount that you would have used to pay that amount and adding it to the next one and adding it to the next one. So using the snowball effect to pay off your debt. Disputing any inaccurate or incomplete activity. A lot of times, some of my clients will sit down and will look at their credit report, and they have something on there that their mother put on there years ago, like a utility bill. Like, no, my utility bill is paid. What utility bill is this? Well, you didn't know that your mother put the utilities in your name years ago and maybe didn't pay them or pay them on time, and that's impacting your credit. But until you dive in deep, you're not going to know these things. So diving in deep and disputing anything is going to be really important. Paying your bills on time, we talked about that. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I think I spent enough time on that. But I want to share with you this strategy that I use, and it's been effective. I filed bankruptcy after my first divorce because I didn't apply any of these principles during that marriage. And the way that I was able to get pristine credit right now is applying some of these strategies. But the one strategy that I love and deploy all the time is when you do use your credit card, and I suggest that people who can effectively manage this, use your credit card when you need to. But when you do use it, 5 to 7 days before your statement end date, pay off a significant chunk of your balance. Let's say around 80%. So let's say you use $1,000. You use your credit card $1,000. So 5 to 7 days before your credit card statement post, you're going to pay 800 of those dollars, right? So when you do that, you're doing two things. You're decreasing your credit utilization, right, which is 30% of your credit score, and you're paying on time, which is 35% of your credit score, right? So this is a strategy that if you deploy it, it can increase your credit score significantly in a short period of time. And there are all of these other strategies, but this is the one that I deploy often that has been very effective in helping me. Ask for higher credit limits. So we talked about that. The credit that you're allowed, your credit limits. If your utilization is higher than 30% now, in order to decrease your utilization without paying a whole bunch of it off really quickly, if you can't afford to do that, maybe you ask for a higher credit limit. So now that decreases your utilization. So if you had $1,000 credit limit, and you had 80% that you were spending or you owed, right? You have an 80% credit utilization. Well, I can't pay off $800 right now, but I've paid on time consistently with this particular creditor. Well, call that creditor and ask them to increase your credit limit to $1,600. So now that $800 is at least 50% credit utilization. So you can use those types of things to help you improve your credit score in a short period of time. Become an authorized user on someone's credit card. I did this for my children, but I did this for my children because I pay my bills on time, and I'm going to pay my bills on time unless I'm sick. And I have protections for those as well. So don't do this for your children if you're not going to pay your bills on time, or don't ask someone to add you to their credit card if they are not paying their bills on time, or if you can't trust that they will. But when you do this, this is a way to improve your credit. My son is 22, and last year he went and bought his first car, and we went, and the guy was saying, "Oh my God, his credit score was like 803 or something like that." And he was like, "Mom, I have great credit." I said, "No, son, I have great credit because I put him on my credit card when he was 16, and it has been building since then." So that is a good strategy. In dealing with collection agencies, Look, I've been here, done that. Don't avoid it. Don't ignore it. Don't hang up. Answer your phone and deal with it. Explain to them what your situation is. A lot of times they will work with you. A lot of times they'll, reduce your interest or get rid of your interest and negotiate a payoff with you. But when we ignore it, that snowball just keeps rolling and getting bigger and getting bigger. And it's overwhelming when you're bogged down with debt. And when you're living paycheck to paycheck, believe me, I know how overwhelming it is. When I first got divorced and I filed bankruptcy, I cried myself to sleep every night because when I did my budget, I was still in red every night. So this is sacrificial. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of discipline and consistent application. But if you're feeling that way, don't avoid it, deal with it. Using a secure credit card. So for those that have really bad credit or no credit, using a secure credit card is a great, great way to increase your credit in a short period of time. And then getting credit for your monthly recurring bills like rent and utilities. And I recently just heard that there's this afterpay that Apple have, and there's another type of pay that Android have, that those are now being reported. So if you're doing a great job in paying off your afterpay stuff, which I don't suggest using it at all. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. However, realistically, if you're already using those things and you are paying that on time, then that will start to have a positive impact on your credit. So we talked about eliminating debt. I'm going to go through these really quickly, but I said pay off debt using the snowball effect. But paying off debt, the first thing I want you to do is don't open another line of credit. Right? That's what we're do when we stress. Oh my God, all of these things come in, 0% interest, but it doesn't. We don't read the fine print where it says after 90 days, it's going to balloon to 23% interest. But we need the money right now. So we open up a line of credit, or we go to a payday loan account, or we get a subprime lending loan. Don't open another line of credit. Second, understand who you owe and how much. If I were to ask you, what credit cards do you have? What are your interest rates? What is your outstanding balance? What is your plan to pay it off? Most of us will not be able to answer that question. We have to take the time to do the work to understand who we owe and how much. Again, negotiating with our creditors, paying down your lowest balance first and allowing that money to roll into the next one, and to roll into the next one, and to roll into the next one. Apply newly available dollars to the next, so repeat, and then be sure to pay your bills on time. The proverbs that I love around this is the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. And for me, as an African-American woman, I don't want to be a slave to anybody. 400 years of that was enough. So, and that's how it feels. It feels like we're working just to pay off our bills, just to pay off our debt, to work again. When essentially we should be working to invest and allow our investments to live so we can live again and again. Okay, and adequate insurance. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, okay? So not just your children, your children's children. And I mentioned earlier that a lot of our counterparts, wealthy counterparts, leverage insurance to leave a tax-free wealth for their children. So in exchange for a relatively small payment, which is your premium, you're protected against the chance of a big financial setback and possible large losses or death, right? So don't tell me that your phone is insured because the man that you're buying your phone from is making you insure it, but you're not insuring your life. So what are some types of insurance that are critical for us to explore? Life insurance, homeowners or renters insurance. I'm really saddened when I see a renter whose home is vandalized or it catches fire and they have no place to go and they have no renter's insurance, protection over that. Lost wages, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, health insurance, and if you're a business owner, business liability insurance is really important. So I'm going to end by saying, here's some giving tips, because I believe that your community service and your in philanthropy is your rent for living in a community. So you're giving of your time, your talent, and your treasure to make your community better, right? So I want to give some community tips. Give of your first fruits. Plan for your giving. Again, we talked about making it automatic and giving consistently. And again, it's not if it's not your treasure, let it be your time. Don't make excuses. Don't make excuses. We just saw how Cleveland is the poorest city in the nation. That means we all have a lot of work to do to empower our community, to take back our community, right? And that takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. And accept that no is not an option. Okay. So just a quick summary of what we talked about today. How do you achieve your financial goals? Creating a budget, right? I talked about cutting unnecessary spending, creating more money than bills, creating multiple streams of income. Individuals who achieve financial success have at least 3 different streams of income. Start practicing living below your means, teaching your children finances, and sharing your progress with them and your process with them. I mentioned to you guys when I divorced the first time, and I was stressed out and I cried in my room. I didn't tell my children that I was struggling. I didn't talk to them about finances. It wasn't until I began to apply all of these principles that I began to talk to them about finances and how critical they were and what they needed to do and how to save and how to invest. So my son is in the Navy and he's so proud because he's maxing out his 401k and he has another separate investment vehicle. So this is because I stopped and said, they have to learn too, because even if I'm setting up to leave generational wealth, if I leave it to a generation who does not know how to manage it, then they're going to spend it. And all the work that I worked hard for was for naught, right? So we have to begin to teach our children. Only 70% of wealth transfers to the second generation, 40% to the third generation. And this is significantly less for Blacks. So we have to begin to teach it to our children. Again, I said, open up a savings account at least 20 miles away from your home, local credit union, and pay yourself first. You deserve it. Pay yourself first. If you can't pay yourself first, you have a lot of work to do so that you can work to being able to pay yourself first. Begin repairing your credit, obtain your credit report, understand your credit, pay down your debt using the snowball effect, dispute any accurate or incomplete activity, pay your bills on time. Purchase adequate insurance, determine the type of insurance that fits your needs and your financial goals. Purchase a policy that fits you. Again, it's a tax-free way to transfer wealth to other generations. And lastly, continue to build upon your $1,000 until you've grown 3 to 6 months of your living expenses and you are investing like crazy so that you are working, your money is working for you and you are no longer working for your money. So as I close, I want to say this. Don't be upset about the results you did not get with the work you did not do. Try it. These are biblical principles. Try it God's way. The formula is simple. The practical application and the discipline and accountability is the hard part. So the road to success is a marathon, not a sprint. Believe you can move, and you're halfway there. Thank you for your time. I wanted to share these resources with you. If you have your phone, I'm okay with you taking a picture of these, but these are good resources for you to use for budgeting, for you to use to get your credit report, annualcreditreport.com. Once a year, you can get all 3 of your credit reports for free, and then insurance. And with that, I will open it up for any questions. Thank you for allowing me to share this information with you. I am very, very passionate about finances and extra passionate about women and finances. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Meltrice. That was great. You were very thorough in your presentation and you have answered all the submitted questions.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So thank you
Awesome.
again, and we appreciate you.
All righty. Thank you.
All right, thank you again, Meltrice. That was actually very knowledgeable. I was taking notes the whole time, so I know I have a lot of work to do. But we just wanted to say thank you again to everybody also who attended this presentation. I really hope that it is really very informative for you. But we also like to bring up some of our, invite you to join us for our other events that we have coming up to celebrate Women's History Month. So on Tuesday, March 15th, we have a webinar. It's called Women in Wellness, and it's actually Ease at Work is presenting it. It's one of their life coaches is going to present a little webinar for us about women's and our wellness that we have to always think about every day, nutrition, how our hormones affect us, how to manage stress and resilience. So that's under WebEx on Tuesday, March 15th. If you want to register for that, you can contact the Wellness Works, and we'll send you the link to register for that. On March 18th, which is next Friday, from 12 to 1, we have another webinar that's called Building a Business, and that's a panel discussion with Cleveland-based women, like women-owned businesses. And then Tuesday, March 22nd, that's from 11 to 2, we actually have, it's called Women in Public Safety, and that's where we're going to, public safety is going to honor the women who, dedicated their life to public safety, especially during the pandemic. That you can watch with TV 20, Facebook Live. So you can watch those live on Tuesday, March 22nd, from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And then Friday, the 25th, March 25th, from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock is our Employee Recognition Day. And that is, you can watch live with TV 20 or Facebook Live. Thank you once again. And everybody have a great weekend.
You too.
Hi, thank you, Meltrice.
Thank you, ladies.
I'd like to also thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are Cleveland Cavs, Margaret Wan and Associates, LLC, the City of Cleveland Department of Resource Wellness Works, TV 20, Steel Valley Credit Union, and Faith Fellowship Church. Thank you, because we wouldn't be able to do this without all them.
Elizabeth, I think you're muted, Elizabeth.
There we go. Thank you again, Meltrice, for joining us. I knew right away that I wanted to reach out to you. My experience with you in other events, as I just knew that you were the right person. So thank you for saying yes. My team, again, thank you. Thank you everyone who joined us, and have a wonderful day.